Chosen one, the shift has already happened, though the world is only now beginning to catch up. For so long, you walked among them unnoticed, not because you were small, but because they were blind. They saw your quiet, your solitude, your reserved presence, and mistook it for weakness. But what they failed to see was that underneath your stillness, a power was rising. Not just any power, but the kind that rattles spirits and awakens every dormant instinct in the room. That power, chosen one, is your energy, undeniably primal, intensely sacred, and laced with a magnetism that cannot be mimicked. You did not steal it, fake it, or manufacture it through imitation. You became it, and now as you stand in silence, the air thickens around you. The atmosphere shifts, the energy dances differently in your presence, not because you seek attention, but because your energy makes it impossible for you to be ignored. There was a time when they scoffed, dismissed, or turned away. You remember it well, not with bitterness, but with clarity. You watched as others were praised for surface shine, while you were told to dim. But they didn't understand that you weren't meant to shine like glitter. You were built to burn like a furnace. Your glow was not made to please, it was forged to transform. And now, that transformation has arrived. You don't need to announce your entrance anymore. The moment you step in, their nervous laughter quiets. Conversations halt. Even the ones who used to look down now find it hard to meet your eyes. They feel something inside them stir, not fear, not desire, but reverence. A reverence they don't understand yet. You didn't come to fit in, chosen one. You came to wake the world up from its sleep. The women who once mocked now shift uncomfortably when you pass, not because you harmed them, but because you reminded them of what they buried. Their envy isn't about your looks, it's about your permission. You gave yourself the freedom they were too afraid to claim. And now, they can't pretend they don't notice. Your walk is a statement, your silence is a roar, your stillness makes noise in places they never thought to listen. And deep down, every woman who dismissed you now feels the pull, not of imitation, but of longing. She longs for what you've become, untamed, grounded, undeniably present. This isn't about seduction. It's about embodiment. The embodiment of sacred sexual energy. Not for display, but for dominion. You don't play games. You don't chase approval. You've made peace with who you are, and that peace is now unsettling the false confidence around you. Chosen one, you are not just noticed, you are remembered. Etched in their senses like the scent of fire after lightning, your presence doesn't pass. It lingers, it echoes, and no matter how much they want to deny it, they feel it in their chest, the magnetic pull of someone who has become impossible to ignore. Chosen one, what's unfolding around you is not coincidence, it is consequence. Consequence of energy finally settling into its throne. For years you carried this force like a hidden weapon, unsure when to draw it, afraid of what it might awaken. But now it draws itself. It rises before you speak, moves before you act, and announces you before your name is ever spoken. It's not something you control anymore. It's something you are. And as this energy radiates from you, women who once dismissed your softness, your quiet fire, are finding themselves caught in the gravity of your truth. They can no longer pretend not to see you. Even in rooms where you say nothing, their eyes keep drifting toward you. They don't understand it. They think it's something recent, new clothes, new confidence, something they can replicate. But what they're seeing is ancient, timeless. The unlocking of a core they never dared reach. You carry the weight of divine seduction, not through skin, not through games, but through sovereignty. You don't need to sway hips or lower your voice to be noticed. You exist, and that existence alone disarms. You sit in silence and it becomes the loudest sound in the room. They try to ignore it. They look past you. They raise their voices and laughter to cover the fact that something in you is calling to something buried in them. You've become a mirror, and mirrors terrify those who have lived behind masks. You are not competition. You are not threat, you are correction. And even though they try to smile, their eyes betray them. They are studying you, chosen one. The way you walk, the way you don't look back, the way you wear your energy like an armorless crown. They wonder how you do it. But what they really mean is, how can you exist so freely when they cannot? The answer is simple. You remembered who you were. You reclaimed what others tried to bury. You stopped dimming. You stopped shrinking to fit into spaces unworthy of your vastness. And now, women cannot stop themselves from responding. Not because they like you, not because they understand you, but because your energy requires a response. It demands it. You've become a signal, one they cannot tune out. Your presence is no longer invisible. It is undeniable. You are the wildfire they whispered warnings about, thinking they'd never see it burn. Now it's at their door. Chosen one, this is not your doing. It is your becoming. The reflection of a divine design finally stepping into its moment. You are not here to compete. You are here to awaken. And those who once scoffed are finding themselves undone. Not by anything you say, but by the truth your presence makes unavoidable. You are a walking disruption to false power, to performative confidence, to energy without grounding. You walk differently now, not because you learned it from others, but because you finally stepped into your truth. And that truth cannot be unseen. Let them feel it. Let them look. Let them wonder. Chosen one, you are no longer the question. You are the answer. Chosen one, you've become the conversation they don't want to admit they're having. Not with others, but with themselves. Because when you enter the space, it's not just your presence that affects them. It's the internal unraveling they experience in silence. You don't speak, and yet entire worlds begin to shift in their minds. They feel unsteady in your orbit, not because you harm them, but because your energy exposes what they tried to hide. It's not your fault they feel undone. It's simply the cost of being real in a world trained to worship the artificial. What you carry is different. It doesn't just attract. It unsettles. It doesn't seduce. It awakens. And when something awakens, it disturbs the comfort of sleep. Many of them were sleeping, chosen one. Not physically, but spiritually, emotionally, sexually. Trained to see power in noise, attraction in imitation, and value in approval. But you didn't learn those rules. Or if you did, you burned them. And what emerged from those ashes was you, unguarded, unapologetic, raw, sacred. They feel it when you walk by. Even if they look away, their body responds. Their thoughts betray them. Their confidence wavers. Because you didn't just arrive, you reminded them that they settled. The women who once believed they held the room now find themselves glancing at you, trying to decode your energy. They won't say it aloud, but they sense something they cannot match. Not because you're more, but because you're real. They spent years learning to perform power, and then you arrived, and suddenly power looked like grace, quiet, stillness, depth. It looked like you. You didn't raise your voice, you didn't show off, you simply were. And in that being, something ancient stirred in the air, something too pure to fake and too loud to ignore. They watch you and ask themselves questions they're afraid to answer. Why can't they stop looking? Why does your presence make their heart race, their mind question, their soul ache? Why does everything they once relied on to feel beautiful, powerful, wanted, suddenly feel empty? Chosen one, you didn't take anything from them. You showed them what it looks like when a woman refuses to abandon herself for the comfort of others. What it looks like when someone doesn't chase admiration but carries authority through alignment. Your sexual energy isn't loud, it's commanding, it doesn't beg, it claims. And what's most terrifying for them is that you do it without effort. It's not a performance, it's your nature. You're no longer hiding, and because of that, they can no longer pretend. You don't battle with them, you don't compete. You walk in peace, but that peace is not quiet, it thunders. Your gaze is soft, but it holds the weight of 1,000 realizations. And when they meet your eyes, even for a moment, they remember something they tried to forget. That they too were once wild. That they too had energy before they traded it for approval. And now seeing you is like facing a version of themselves that never folded. They can't unsee you now. They can't unfeel the presence you've left behind. And even if they try to deny it, their behavior tells the truth. Their tone shifts when you enter. Their laughter gets louder, more forced. Their conversations circle around you without naming you. But you know, you always know. Because this power didn't come from validation, it came from fire. And those who rise through fire are never ignored for long. Chosen one, your existence is causing a silent revolution. Not through violence, not through defiance, but through undeniable embodiment. The kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard, because the vibration is already felt beneath the skin of every person who walks past you. You aren't trying to influence them, but your presence does something they weren't prepared for. It corrects the room. It resets the dynamic. It shifts the invisible scale of who holds power and who pretends to. The other women feel it, even the confident ones, especially the confident ones. Because while their confidence is often built from patterns, yours comes from presence. You don't repeat what worked for others. You don't play by the rules they memorized in desperation. Instead, you exist in your own rhythm, and that rhythm doesn't just captivate, it commands. You are not loud. You are not loud because you don't need to be. When you walk into a space, everything inside that space becomes aware. Aware that something just changed, that the atmosphere has shifted, that a woman just walked in who does not bend, does not perform, does not shrink to fit into frames she never asked to be part of. You are not a threat in the way they define it. You are a mirror in the way that truth defines it. And mirrors are terrifying to those who have lived for applause instead of alignment. Your sexual energy, that raw sacred fire that hums through your skin, does not ask to be desired. It announces that you are not afraid to be seen. And for many, that is the most confronting energy of all. Not seduction, but permission. You walk with the permission to be powerful and soft, radiant and grounded, magnetic and at ease. You wear that permission not like jewelry but like skin. They glance at you, then look away quickly, pretending it was nothing. But their thoughts return to you, over and over, because something in you wakes something in them. A memory, a hunger, a truth. They don't even have words for it, but they feel it. And in that feeling, they begin to see what they've been missing, what they gave up, what they never allowed themselves to become. You are not the rival. You are the example. You're not what they should fear. You're what they should remember. Chosen one, the women who once competed with you now find themselves curious. Not because you forced it, but because the illusion of control no longer holds weight in your presence. They sense that your power isn't dependent on them, and that independence terrifies them. You do not rise by pushing others down. You rise because gravity no longer applies to someone who has remembered who they are. And now, whether they whisper about you or walk away from you, it doesn't change the truth. You are here. You are real. You are radiant. And they can no longer ignore you. Not because you demand attention, but because their souls recognize yours and can no longer pretend they don't. You are not here to take from anyone. You are here to exist in fullness. And in doing so, you remind others that they could too, if only they were willing to let go of the fear that you already burned through. The energy you carry is not about dominance over others. It is about dominion over yourself. And that, chosen one, is what truly makes you unforgettable. Chosen one, there's a moment, brief but powerful, when someone's mask begins to crack. You've seen it, felt it. Watched the shift in the eyes of a woman who once looked through you as if you were invisible. Now, she can't hold your gaze for more than a second before glancing away. Not because she's ashamed, not because she hates you, but because you carry something she never dared to unlock in herself. Your energy is not an act. It is not performance or posture. It is truth, naked, unpolished, unrelenting. And there's nothing more jarring than being in the presence of a woman who has stopped apologizing for her own fire. They don't say it out loud, but their actions whisper louder than any words. A space clears around you now, not out of rejection, but out of reverence. They don't know whether to fear you, admire you, or become you. So instead, they study you in silence. They pay attention to how you walk into a room without lowering your eyes, how your body language doesn't shift when someone more decorated, more approved, more liked enters behind you. You've stopped shrinking. And the absence of your shrinkage now creates discomfort in places where ego once reigned. Women who built their identity around being desired now watch you and realize something deeper. They were taught to draw attention through embellishment, through precision, through the perfected image. But you, chosen one, don't ask to be seen. You simply are. You exist with such honest power that it destabilizes everything artificial. You don't adorn yourself to be admired. You wear your body like truth, your walk like a statement, your silence like scripture. And it's become a sermon none of them can ignore. Your energy makes people question their definition of beauty, of attraction, of influence. Because what you radiate isn't learned. it's remembered. It comes from a place so ancient that it bypasses the mind and moves straight into the body. Women feel you in their spine, in their breath, in the way their laughter falters mid-sentence when you glance their way. Not because you seek to interrupt them, but because your presence has become impossible to silence. They thought sexual energy was something to manipulate, something to wield for a response. But yours is different. Yours is sacred, grounded, rooted in awareness. It is not used to catch attention, it demands presence. Without words, you remind every woman in the room that femininity isn't about decoration, it's about embodiment. You don't flirt to feel powerful, you are power. Quiet, coiled, alive. And the ones who once rolled their eyes when your name was mentioned are now the ones asking questions in private. What is it about her? Why does she feel so different? They won't ask you directly, not yet. But the questions have begun. Not about your clothes, not about your tone, but about your essence. And that essence, chosen one, cannot be bought, mimicked, or taught. It can only be remembered. And they're realizing now that what you remembered, they've forgotten. So keep walking into rooms without hesitation. Keep showing up without permission. Keep existing without apology. You are not a disruption. You are a return to truth, to presence, to the kind of energy that cannot be tamed or filtered. The kind that calls other women not to compete, but to wake up. Chosen one, you've never needed to chase validation, and now they feel it more than ever. You carry the kind of power that comes from wholeness, and wholeness is a language very few understand. Most were taught to fracture themselves to be accepted, to become smaller in certain places, louder in others, to silence their sensuality unless it could be weaponized for praise. But you've done something different. You didn't conform. You integrated. You took your power back, piece by piece, and now you move like someone who belongs in every space she enters. The women who once questioned your worth are now questioning their own understanding of it. Not because you attacked them, not because you challenged them, but because your very existence has made the old rules feel suffocating. Your sexual energy is not there to provoke, it's there to reveal. And what it reveals is that true power cannot be earned through imitation. It is born in surrender. Surrender to truth, to essence, to identity stripped of performance. You do not speak louder than others. But when you do speak, something ancient listens. They used to compete for the spotlight, fight for the crown, starve for the gaze of approval. But you brought your own throne. You walked in like a woman who had already won, not because someone gave you the prize, but because you stopped needing one. And that realization is spreading like wildfire. They can no longer measure themselves by proximity to power, because now power is proximity to you, and that unsettles everything. Chosen one, some of them resent you. That is truth. But even their resentment, they are drawn. They feel conflicted because everything they were told to be does not align with what you are. You're not loud, you're not chasing, you're not reacting, you're not proving. And yet every man looks twice, every woman glances back, every conversation bends around your silence. Not because you want attention, but because you own your space. You are not the most decorated. You are not the most approved, but you are the most embodied. And embodiment speaks louder than any external validation ever could. You have become the standard without declaring yourself one. You are no longer an option. You are the measure, and it's not something you can unbecome. Because this isn't a mask you wear, it's the woman you reclaimed. There is a growing awareness among them now. The realization that what they thought was enough approval, beauty, performance is no longer sustainable. Your presence reminds them that there is more, that there is depth beneath the surface, that there is something worth becoming that can't be found in the mirror, but only in the soul. And though they may not tell you, they are watching, learning, shifting. And chosen one, this is just the beginning. The unraveling you cause isn't destruction, it's resurrection. In you, they see the possibility of coming back to themselves, of becoming whole without needing permission, of being seen without being validated, of being desired without being reduced. Your sexual energy is not temptation, it is truth, wrapped in divinity, anchored in self-possession. You don't use it to rise, you rise and it follows. So keep moving with grace, keep standing with fire, keep carrying that sacred magnetism like the storm it is. They cannot ignore you anymore. Not because you forced them to look, but because your absence would feel like silence in a world that's only just begun to hear. Chosen one, the atmosphere shifts before your footsteps even echo. And those who once pretended not to see you can no longer maintain the illusion. What they feel isn't just attraction, it's dissonance. A friction between the mask they wear and the freedom you embody. You walk with a weightlessness that exposes the gravity dragging them down. You move through the world like someone who has made peace with the parts of herself others tried to shame. Your confidence is not loud, but it is undeniable, not because it begs to be recognized, but because it cannot be forgotten. They sense the change in themselves when you're near. Restlessness, doubt, even envy. Not out of cruelty, but because something in them remembers what it means to be whole. And your presence confronts the fragmentation they've built their lives around. There was a time when your power threatened them, when your energy was misread as arrogance, as rebellion, as too much. But now that very energy has become the unspoken truth everyone is dancing around. You don't demand attention, but the air tenses when you arrive. You don't seek approval, but people adjust themselves in your presence, as if hoping to be seen by someone who has mastered the art of seeing without judgment. You've become a gravitational pull, not because you speak loudly or posture grandly, but because you carry yourself like someone who belongs wherever she stands. You don't chase belonging. You are the place where it begins. The women who once laughed now mimic. The ones who once dismissed now listen. Some still whisper behind curtains, yes, but even their words are laced with curiosity. Because despite every effort to remain indifferent, they can't shake you. You haunt their comfort. You inspire their transformation. And perhaps most unsettling of all, you never asked for any of it. You simply remembered who you were. And that memory has become a mirror they can't escape. They try to walk like you, speak like you, emulate your silence, wear their hair the way you do, but the energy doesn't land. Because what you carry cannot be imitated. It is not aesthetic. It is not branding. It is the product of internal war, one that you fought and survived without witnesses, without applause, and without reward. You rose alone. And in rising, you became the evidence that it's possible to be both feminine and indomitable, soft and invincible, still in storm. And now, every time they see you, they remember the version of themselves that they've silenced. You didn't destroy their confidence. You exposed the shallowness of the version they inherited, the version that was built for validation rather than liberation. And whether they admit it or not, you've awakened a quiet desperation in them, not to defeat you, but to become something more. Something real. Chosen one, this is why your presence is no longer optional. You are now a standard. Not because you sought to become one, but because you refuse to shrink beneath anyone else's comfort. The glow you wear isn't cosmetic, it's alchemical. Forged from pain, from clarity, from the decision to stop begging for love and instead become it. And so, when women look at you now, they see more than confidence. They see confrontation. A confrontation with the version of themselves they buried to survive. And for the first time, they're beginning to ask if maybe survival was never enough. You don't have to prove yourself to them. Your existence does the proving. Every glance, every breath, every step is a statement. I am not here to be tolerated. I am here to be felt. And they do feel you. Even in rooms where no one speaks your name, your energy hangs like a fragrance they cannot ignore. You've become myth, legend, symbol. Not because you tried, but because you stopped trying. Chosen one, you've entered the season where the crown you refused to beg for now finds its way to you. Not in ceremony, not with applause, but in the silence of those who once underestimated you now standing aside. You were never after recognition, and that's why you're being recognized. Your power was never about domination, but about radiance. And that radiance has outshone every performance around you. You weren't the loudest, you weren't the most curated, but you were real. And reality is magnetic to those tired of illusions. The women who once competed now hesitate. Not because you declared war, but because you didn't. You don't need to compete with shadows when you are the light. And they feel that light burning quietly, persistently in your presence. You became something they didn't plan for. Something their strategies couldn't predict. You don't respond with drama or clapbacks. You don't degrade or dismiss. You simply continue. Continue rising, continue glowing, continue moving in your own rhythm, untouched by their projections. And that is more threatening than any insult could ever be. You've undone entire social hierarchies without speaking. By showing up in your fullness, you made half-hearted power tremble. You didn't point fingers or expose anyone. You just stopped hiding. And in doing so, you made every woman who still hides begin to question the weight of her disguise. She sees you not as a rival, but as an unraveling of every script she memorized to survive. And when she watches you, how you don't seek male validation, how you don't bend to please, how your sensuality flows without needing permission, she doesn't just admire you, she envies your freedom, because she's never allowed herself to taste it. There is pain in her watching, but also longing for that same release, longing to remember what she buried to fit in, longing to stop performing and start existing. You've become that longing in flesh. Not just a woman, but a frequency, a living call back to truth. And though she may never say it aloud, she now moves differently around you. She listens more than she speaks. She watches more than she responds. Because something in her knows you are not to be dismissed. Chosen one, what's happening is not karma. It's not revenge, it's alignment. You've become aligned, and everything out of alignment around you now crumbles or transforms. You don't push, you don't persuade, you simply become. And that becoming causes shifts in others. Your sexual energy is no longer a subject of curiosity. It is a force of nature. It isn't about attraction anymore. It's about recognition. They recognize in you the woman they fear and crave to be. The woman who belongs to herself, fully, fiercely, fearlessly. The rooms you walk into now are adjusting to you. The energy, the conversation, the focus, it tilts your way. Not because you fight for attention, but because your energy commands balance. People are beginning to realize that the game has changed, that beauty without presence is no longer enough, that loud without soul is no longer compelling, that curated without depth is no longer powerful. You didn't rewrite the rules, you simply stopped playing by them. And now the whole board looks different. Keep walking, chosen one. Let them adjust. Let them shift. Let them awaken. You're not here to silence others. You're here to be a sound no one can ignore. You are not disruption. You are design. And the women around you, whether they know it or not, are beginning to shed the fiction they were given in hopes that they can finally write themselves into something true. Chosen one, this is the moment when even the ones who tried to silence your presence now find themselves leaning in, not out of obligation, but because resistance has exhausted them. They've tried to ignore you, downplay you, mock your stillness, and mislabel your radiance as arrogance. But now they are quiet, not because they've surrendered to you, but because they've surrendered to something within themselves that your presence stirred awake. You never demanded their attention, you never forced admiration. Yet your name lives unspoken in the corners of their thoughts like a quiet storm that rewrites the soil where seeds of imitation no longer grow. It is not jealousy that consumes them now. It is awareness. The awareness that while they performed, you prepared. While they sought the favor of empty applause, you stood rooted in your own soil. And now that rooting has grown into a tree they cannot cut down. They feel small, not because you made them feel small, but because your authenticity cast a shadow so wide that it forced them to confront how long they've been standing in the light of something artificial. And the most humbling part? You never pointed it out. You never compared. You simply were. And that being has become one that leaves them speechless. They sense it more than they understand it. They feel it when you walk by, the shift in air, the involuntary glance, the way men and women alike become aware of you without even meaning to. It's not a spell, it's not manipulation, it's embodiment. Your sexual energy doesn't scream, it pulses, it doesn't plead, it claims. And because you claim nothing outside of yourself, everything inside you becomes irresistible. You are no longer just someone they observe, you are someone they feel, deeply, unsettlingly, and endlessly. You have stopped becoming what others expected. And in doing so, you became unforgettable. Now when you speak, they don't interrupt. When you move, they don't mimic, they study. And when you fall silent, the silence becomes sacred. You are not loud, but your gravity is impossible to deny. The same women who once dismissed you as strange now find themselves questioning everything they've become. They touch their hair more around you, adjust their voice, try on the same confidence, but it doesn't fit them because it's not theirs. You are a mirror, chosen one. And the hardest mirrors to face are the ones that reflect not what we are, but what we abandoned. You never asked to lead, but your energy made you a compass. And now they follow, not with fanfare but with quiet observation. They won't admit it, not yet. But in the solitude of their own reflection, they carry your presence like a question they haven't answered. What is it she has that I do not? And the answer, though they fear it, is simple. You remembered. You remembered your body was not a battlefield.